Well, if you feel a sense of somewhat perpetual dread and overwhelm whenever you think about photos and memories, you are not alone. This video I'm about to share is actually a Facebook Live from a few years ago, all about my philosophy as a Christian and a minimalist behind how I organize and deal with photos, as well as my very practical step-by-step system I follow. So I'm gonna let 2018 Diana take it away. But first, if you're a Christian woman who's interested in simplifying and systemizing your life to make time for what matters most, you have found your people. So hit subscribe and check out some really valuable freebies that I have linked for you below. Hello, this is gonna be a quick video, as quick as I can make it before my battery runs out. So I'll jump right into things. We're gonna talk about photos today because one of my clients, I'm a certified professional life coach, and one of my clients today asked about photos, and I started talking a little bit about how I organize photos and thought that it would be helpful to make a video for all of you, primarily for her, but for all of your sakes too. It's something that I've been meaning to talk about for a little while, actually. So we're going to talk about photos. I'm going to tell you, exactly how we organize our photos. Not to say that that's the best system or anything. That's just how we do it. And I also just want to talk about photo organization in general and some actually spiritually related concepts related to this. So as I'm talking, feel free to chime in and share your thoughts, and we would love to hear how you do your photos, and high fives for you if you are really on top of things, and absolutely no shame if you're not on top of things. It's all good. Okay, so what I want to say about this first, you will find out that I'm not, yes, I'm a life coach. No, I absolutely do not have super fancy books that are all scrapbooked or whatever. For a long time, I felt like I was doing something wrong, or like I needed to be doing that. I should be making these books, and I used to be an extreme scrapbooker, and then I tried less severe versions of that, and then when I was pregnant, I basically told myself, you need to make a decision, at least for, probably for good, but at least for now, about what your approach is going to be to photos. Are you going to put them all in books or not? Because for me, maybe it's my Enneagram 1, to have it half done, to have some years where I'd made a book and some years where I didn't, or whatever, would just feel very bleh to me. So I really wanted to be consistent. I felt for a long time like, oh, I should be doing this better, I should make time for this, and you probably know tons of people who, or at least some people, who are really good at staying on top of the photo stuff. And I mean, I think it is still my mom's goal to get all of her photos in albums, and she has gotten a decent amount in albums. So there are people like that, and one thing that I noticed in particular is that a lot of the people that I was thinking about when I was trying to decide for myself what my standards would be related to photos and organization, people I was comparing myself to were photographers. In other words, they are professionals, and photos are literally their job. And so I was observing these photographers and how they were making these beautiful books and super complicated and spending hours and tons of time tons of money, and kind of feeling like, oh, I should do that. And all of a sudden I realized they are professionals. That is what they are good at, and that is what they love to do. And that would be silly for me to look at every person who's a professional in every arena and think that I need to hold my life to the same standard as them. Someone who's a financial planner, I need to be as into money and spend as much time researching the market as they do. Someone who's into health, I need to spend as much time working on my health or reading books about health or whatever as that person. No, that's their job, and again, it's what they love. So I just want to say there is so much freedom for you and how you go about photos, and there is so much freedom in so many areas of life as a Christian. And I think that it can be very easy to, on the one hand, it can be very easy to feel guilty that we're not measuring up. And then on the other hand, it can be easy to kind of judge people for doing something or for not doing something. And whether you are super hardcore about your photos, or whether you are a complete hot mess and your phone gallery is just a phone graveyard, or a photo graveyard, it is okay. What matters is not exactly what you are doing with your photos. What matters is how you are doing them. What matters is that you are redeemed by God, and you have freedom to choose how you want to do things, and your heart in that thing and your motive is what matters the most to God. I came across this in Romans recently, actually, which I think is I wrote in my note or in the margin of my Bible, there are so many different and even sometimes opposing ways to glorify God. So it's talking about how people approach different things, how people are approaching things like whether or not to eat vegetables or not or whatever. So it says one person, this is Romans 14:5, one person considers one day more sacred than another considers every day alike. Each of them should be fully convinced in their own mind. Whoever regards one day as special does so to the Lord. Whoever eats meat does so to the Lord, for they give thanks to God. And whoever abstains does so to the Lord and gives thanks to God. For none of us lives for ourselves alone, and none of us dies for ourselves alone. If we live for the Lord, and if we die for the Lord. So whether we live or die, we belong to the Lord. I love that because it's like literally saying one person might be eating meat to glorify God, another person might not. I think you can apply this to so many things. One woman might say, I'm not going to wear makeup. I'm not going to get my hair highlighted. I'm not whatever. To the glory of God. Another woman might say, I am going to do those things to the glory of God, and I'm going to thank God for those things. So I think that photos are totally one of those things that can fall in that category. You can absolutely glorify God in spending a bunch of time and putting together memories. You can also absolutely glorify God in saying, I'm not going to do that. And so there are definitely things about my life that I'm sure I spend time on that you might say, that's not that important, or how does that glorify God, or in the scope of eternity, is that important? Is that really important? So there are things like that for me, but when it comes to photos, that's something that I personally feel like this is not like my most critical mission on earth. If we were not Christians, if there wasn't heaven, if we weren't saved by God and didn't have this much higher purpose to our lives, then honestly, creating memories and saving memories might feel like our highest mission on earth. For a lot of good people, if you don't have God in your life, your family is the most important thing to you. And newsflash, your family, if you are a Christian, is not the most important thing. God is the most important thing. So it is okay if you are not making photo albums or whatever. That's totally fine. Do that to the glory of God. So like I said, my ultimate life goal is not to preserve memories or make memories, and that's totally okay. And I think sometimes we need to press into some of that stuff and acknowledge that there might be some fear there. Is there fear related to why you are choosing to do or not do something that's totally optional? And how legitimate is that? So many things that we do or don't do as moms, I think, and this isn't just specifically for moms, but this video, but so many things that we do or don't do are related to fear. And as a Christian, we have the ability to toss a lot of that aside. So I could live in fear that I'm going to mess up my kid or something, or I'm going to regret it if I don't spend all this time making all these crazy photo books. I don't have to live in that, because honestly, if my kid grows up and he knows the Lord and he walks with the Lord and he helps make God known, and I'm like helping facilitate that in his life, I am achieving my mission as his mom. And if he doesn't have like the most fancy scrapbooks or baby books or whatever to look at, that's okay. And if he did, that would be wonderful too, and that could be such a blessing. But he doesn't need that, and he will be okay without that. So if you are someone who ever feels guilt because you're not super on top of all the memory stuff, it is okay. Your kids will be okay. And I'll tell you what we do. It's not that we don't do anything with our photos. So that's just kind of what I wanted to start with, like the higher level stuff and the spiritual side of this before I get into the nitty gritty. So what we do with our photos, you might have figured out by now, we do not do photo books. We do not do any. But I do organize my photos by year and by month and sometimes by event. So I'm taking photos basically in two places, either on my phone or on our nice-ish camera. And so then once a month, I'm really good about getting the photos off of my camera. On my phone, it's not always as good. I try to have, if I've got like some downtime, instead of jumping onto, I don't know, something junky on my phone, I try to make my first thing that I do be to respond to texts and then clean up photos on my phone. But I'm not perfect at that, so I'm gonna be honest with you about that. So I try once a month though to get any photos off of my phone and off of my camera. So my camera, I'm just literally sticking my memory card into my computer. I have the Dropbox app on my phone. So I'm just like literally, I go through, I clean up photos. I'm not obsessive about deleting photos, but I do not upload like every single picture. And you know how it is, especially with kids. It's like you take 10 pictures trying to get a good one. So I try to narrow that down a little bit, and then I pop them into Dropbox. So I keep all of my photos in Dropbox. I also back them up externally every quarter, 4 times a year, which is probably unnecessary, but I just do it anyway just to be safe. So I've got them in 2 places, and that means that I can look at my photos on my computer or on the Dropbox website or even on the app on my phone. So I'm going through and I'm putting them in Dropbox, and I just organize them. I have a folder for each year, so 2018, and then within the 2018 folder I have 2018 1, 2018 2 for each month. And then if there's maybe a big event where there's a lot of photos for that specific event, I might make a folder within that one. Well, we just went on vacation, so maybe I'll make a folder in the July one for our vacation and put all those photos in there. So I'm just throwing in all the photos from my phone that I took or that other people sent to me, as well as all the photos from our camera, and just putting them all into that one place for the month. I don't really do that much else with them. Like I said, I do try to narrow it down just a little bit so it's not, number one, taking up tons of space, and number two, not just super cluttery and really overwhelming. And then my thought with that is this: I'm not creating these amazing photo albums for my kids and for my family. That's the choice that I've made, at least for now. Maybe that'll change someday. But I have them well organized, and honestly, I wonder if photo albums maybe, well, all the photographers watching this right now are like, no, but I wonder if photo albums will maybe be not used quite as often in the future, just because if you have them organized well on your phone, like my thought is, if Harry wants to look at pictures someday or whatever, I can hand him a tablet and we can swipe through and look at pictures of when he was born. I know that having pictures printed and all that stuff is different. I get that. But again, even as much as that might be like the ideal, I can't do everything and I can't prioritize everything. So this is a choice that I've made. I also am kind of a minimalist, so the thought of having tons and tons of albums taking up space, I'm not super crazy about. So that's my thought. So I have them all organized, and it's actually really fun because having Dropbox on my phone and having those photos organized, even if I don't have this super fancy system, it's amazing how often I'm like hanging out with someone, we're at my parents' house and we're talking about some memory, and I can pull up a photo really quickly from that and be like, oh my goodness, do you remember what we wore to that thing? Or pull up some funny picture. So that's my approach. As far as Harry and memories for him and journaling and stuff for him, I looked at a few different things when I was pregnant and decided that I wasn't going to do any like really extensive journaling, but I came across Promptly journals, Promptly, and I love them, highly recommend them. And so I have a childhood journal for him that spans from birth to pregnancy to 18 years old, and there's space to put 1 photo a year, and then there's some prompts that you fill in, and then some blank space too. And as I'm doing that, as I'm spending the time to do that, I actually have a little post-it that I keep with that journal to remind me that if I'm going to spend the time to do this, why not make it something that creates a legacy for our family's faith? So not just talking about the funny things he did or when he had his first steps or whatever, but I really try, if I'm gonna spend the time to do that and make this little memory book thing for him, I really try to make sure that I talk about like things he was doing in church, or how much joy he brings to people at church, or like, here's what I've been praying for you for this month, or like things that he's doing related to his faith, or how he loves some certain like kids Jesus song, or just things related to his faith and our faith, or talking about how I'm just, God just amazes me through him in this one way. And the way that I try to stay on top of that book is just having a recurring task every month in my electronic to-do list manager, which is called Todoist, Todoist. I have a recurring thing every month that just encourages me to jot something in there, and so once in a while I just skip it for the month, but otherwise usually when it comes up I try to just jot down a couple things, and I'm maybe like, oh yeah, he took his first steps in the last month, so I'll add that to the book, or he's really into this toy, or lately when I put him to bed and I say a prayer for him, he keeps his hands folded voluntarily after I'm done praying, and then he will start like babbling and talking. It's the sweetest thing, and I always tell him, I always like ask him, do you have any prayers you want to say? If he doesn't do that, do you have anything you want to add? Jesus knows what you're saying. Like literally, God knows what he's saying. I have no idea what he's saying, but I think he's praying. So anyway, I'm like getting emotional. It's so cool. I think I've covered almost everything. If you have any questions, let me know. Feel free to comment, whether you're watching this live or the replay. I think the only other two things I was going to mention that are just kind of little ways of memories or whatever. I do have a gratitude journal that I've kept for a long, long time. When I fill it up, I just get a new one and I have them in a little box. So that's kind of one way that there's a lot of other random journaling that I do that I don't necessarily keep. I just kind of toss it if it's like reflective writing or whatever, processing my work day. But I do keep those gratitude journals because even though sometimes it's like repeat things that aren't that exciting, that is something that maybe someday I or my kids might want to look at. I don't know. Maybe at some point someday I'll just throw them out. But of like memories, because obviously some of the things that I write down in there that I'm grateful for are like sweet things related to Harry or Kyle or family or friends or just amazing ways that God has blessed us. So the purpose of me writing in there is just to praise God and to focus my perspective on the good stuff in life. It's not necessarily memory keeping, but it does kind of achieve that as well as a bonus. So that's one other way that we kind of keep memories, so to speak. And then the final thing I wanted to share was just these boxes. Again, the point of all of this is to do it to the glory of God, to do it in a way that is joyful for you and not burdensome. And so you could even make a case that like this is over the top, like what is the eternal purpose of this? Why am I keeping this crap? But this is what we're doing for now, and maybe this will change at some point and I'll feel like, no, I just don't even want to hold on to this. But this is how I keep track of just other like loose mementos. So I have measured this before I got on Facebook Live because I figured some people might be like, where did you get those? I used to get these at Joann Fabrics or whatever, Joann craft store. I don't think they sell them anymore. So I think I got this last one online somewhere and I don't remember where. It might be Pioneer. I'm not sure, but it's 13 by 15 by like probably 3 or something. Where's my ruler? 3.5. Okay, so if you are interested in something like this, you could always Google it. So this one I've had since Kyle and I got married, so 2011 to however long it takes to fill it up. And I just put stuff in here if there's like something very special, like a very, very special ticket, or like I have our wedding invitation in here and our wedding bulletin. I also started one for Harry. So that has, you know, like his baptism certificate and things like that that are really, really special. I really try to not just throw any little junky thing in here. If there is like a card that someone sends that's super, super, super meaningful and I really, really want to save it, I can put it in here. So that's just another thing that we do. And it's obviously a lot simpler than like putting it into a book or even taking photos of things. I know a lot of people do that. And I love that because it takes up less space. But this is like foolproof, very, very easy. Just like throw it in there. So yeah, so that's our system for things. And again, if you have any other questions or anything, feel free to comment. If you are a Christian woman who cares about living intentionally, maybe you're watching this right now and you don't know who I am, or maybe this is the first video you've watched of mine or whatever, but if this kind of stuff interests you, you would probably love to be in my email family. And you can do that by going to dianakerr.com/emails, and emails with an S, and you can get on my email list. You'll get a free workbook when you join the email list, and then every single week I send out kind of a little pep talk email as well as some kind of random intentional living tip, like a very specific actionable tip for you related to intentional living. And I do all of that through the lens of my faith. So the coaching that I do is for Christian women and with a faith base. When I talk about even intentional living, as you saw today, like we talked about photos, but I still brought faith into that because that's really important to me, and that's kind of my little niche that I like to serve in the world. Thank you so much for watching. What is your one takeaway from this video? Comment and tell me, and make sure you subscribe so we don't miss future tips, and join my email family for some bonus content that I don't share anywhere else. I will see you soon.